Welcome to Your Eyes and Ears Don't Lie. We're back again with some new action. I just wanted to touch on this crazy case that I've been knowing about since it happened a couple years ago, but it just was adjudicated in February, and some new updates have happened with this. And it's about a Los Angeles County sheriff who, essentially just assaulted and beat up a woman because she was filming him while he made an arrest. And long story short, let me just read you the article, because a lot of the things that I talk about, I don't just be making up stuff, or I form my opinion after trying to gather as much information as I can about both sides. Whether it's left leaning, right leaning, or central, I try to get as much as I can because the more informed you are, the better. And if you hit the art of war, you got to know your enemy. So that's why I keep up with what goes on, even on the sides that I don't agree with. So I'm gonna read you this article, and this is from the Justice Department for the United States Attorney's Office, Central District of California. Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy found guilty of federal civil rights violation for using excessive force against a woman. And this was Thursday, February 6, 2025. So a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy was found guilty by a jury today of using excessive force when he assaulted and pepper sprayed a woman outside a supermarket in Lancaster, California in June 2023. Trevor James Kirk, 32, of Santa Clarita, was found guilty of one felony count of deprivation of rights under color of law. According to evidence presented at a 3-day trial on June 24, 2023, Kirk and another deputy were responding to a possible robbery at a Winco Food supermarket by a man and a woman. Kirk and the other deputy arrived on scene and handcuffed and detained a man matching the description of the male subject, while the victim, identified in court records as J.H., who matched the description of the female suspect, recorded the deputies on her cell phone while recording. J.H. told Kirk that he had a legal obligation to inform the man of the basis for his detention and that he was broadcasting his actions on social media, she was broadcasting his actions on social media. Kirk then approached J.H. and, without giving any commands, attempted to grab her phone. J.H. turned away, at which point Kirk grabbed J.H. by her arm, hooked his left hand behind her neck, and violently threw her face first to the ground. Crazy. While on the ground, Kirk yelled at J.H. to get on the ground, and she told him that it's already on YouTube Live, implying her video of Kirk and the other deputy handcuffing DB had already been shared on social media. Kirk then placed his knee on J.H.'s shoulder, and when J.H. yelled for Kirk to stop, Kirk cocked his right arm back with a clenched fist and said, "Stop or you're going to get punched in the face." Kirk then pressed his knee into J.H.'s neck, and she said, "Get your knee off my neck," with a few, curse words, and then stated, "I can't breathe." While on top of J.H., Kirk used his LA Sheriff's Department radio to give a misleading report that he was in a fight. Without giving any additional commands to J.H., Kirk pepper sprayed her twice in the face, and while he pepper sprayed her, her hands were holding only prescription sunglasses and a cloth surgical mask. J.H. received medical attention for her injuries sustained from the pepper spray and from being thrown to the ground face first. J.H. was treated for blunt force, head trauma, and injuries to her head, arms, and wrists. United States District Court Judge Stephen V. Wilson scheduled an April 21st sentencing hearing, at which point Kirk will face a statutory maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. Now, mind you, he was found guilty by a jury of his peers. The FBI investigated this matter. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department assisted in the investigation. And Assistant United States Attorneys Eli A. Alcaraz, Brian R. Fairstein, and Michael J. Morris of the Public Corruptions and Civil Rights Section prosecuted this case. When it first happened, before I even saw the specifics of the case back in 2023 when it occurred, I immediately, and it sucks that you have to think like that or you feel like that, but based on what the preliminary details were of what the sheriff did to the woman, I automatically knew she was black. Before any identification or anything identifying the woman, I knew exactly that she was black. because these sheriffs and law enforcement, they think twice before they behave like this with people that are essentially white. I'm gonna say it. They think about the consequences. They think about what could possibly happen and the outrage the white community may have. But they don't when they encounter people of color. And I knew she was black based on when you described an unarmed woman that he tried to take her phone, slammed her face first onto the ground, pepper sprayed her, and put his knee on her neck. I automatically knew. Now fast forward. The reason why I brought this up is because it's not a news story. It's not an isolated story. It happens too much, and it's been happening forever. But why I bring this up is because what did occur after this was despicable. So after you were convicted and you're facing up to 10 years, what happens then? Stephen V. Wilson, who was not appointed to the federal bench by a Democrat. He was appointed by President Ronald Reagan, so he's been there for a while, since '85. But what did occur is you've got a new state's district attorney who is a Trump supporter. He's supported by Trump. He goes in and basically decides to throw out the felony conviction for this officer and decides that he wants to offer a plea deal for misdemeanor, which he doesn't even want any time. But luckily, this judge felt like some sort of justice should be done. So he gave this officer, this peace officer who came with no intentions of being peaceful, 4 months in jail when he should have been facing up to 10. After you were convicted through a juror trial. Outrageous. Outrageous to a point where don't sit here and tell me that everybody has equal protection under the law, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and your civil rights. It's a damn lie. Because you don't even view us as equal people. You may reword the law, you may write different things, you may say different things publicly, but you don't act like we're equal, and you never have and never will until you're forced to change. Because you're not going to change out of the kindness of your heart. You don't have the morals, you don't have the decency. And now with the expansion of what Trump wants to do as far as giving all law enforcement qualified immunity, where no matter what you do, if you do it while you're wearing that badge and on duty, you can't be prosecuted. Just like the ridiculousness of this idiotic Supreme Court, where you give this man immunity for basically anything while he's in office. Even though what you were convicted of, you were not in office. You did it illegally and cheated to get in office. You weren't in office. So nothing you did, even with what that bullshit ruling that they, reached and put out, you shouldn't have qualified immunity because you did it to become president. We knew you weren't going to ever get in trouble for the classified documents, and sad to say, a lot of you presidents take documents. But there was never a thought that somebody was going to leverage it and sell it for their own financial gain or freedom. Because that's the only reason why you're power hungry and corrupt as hell and all that, but the number one reason why you wanted to be president was so you can get rid of all your federal cases. Because it was only the federal cases that you would have faced jail time. So that was your number one objective for becoming president again, is so you can get rid of all your federal cases. Same reason Elon aligned himself with you, to get rid of all the investigations that the federal government had against his companies and to secure additional backing from government funds, grants, bonds, everything, to infiltrate all levels of the government with Elon Musk and his products, to try to put Starlink anywhere that the government would allow him. So he would have access to classified details that you're so compromised it's not even funny. The fact that you do all the business you do with all these foreign adversaries was a reason why you shouldn't have been able to step foot in the White House. So I mean, this is outrageous, to where you get convicted and they go back, and if it hadn't been for this judge who at least felt this warranted some level of time, you bumped a felony down to a misdemeanor when this man should have been going to jail for 10 years. Because people that behave this way in law enforcement, this ain't your first time. You go back and, like clockwork, if you go back and you look through their history, there's been numerous complaints. There's been signs that this may not be the job for you. But they use as an excuse that they're short on officers and so hard up for peace officers that you give these guys a slap on the wrist or a verbal lashing. And they get to continue doing the job, harassing, assaulting, and abusing the community. Outrageous. Where's the fairness? Where's the justice? You can ask that question, but you never get an answer. And all the excuses they use, the statistics don't lie. And now you're not going to have access to a lot of that because with stupid Pam Bondi, who's corrupt and crooked as hell, you got the right people in charge, if you're a horrible person, to get rid of all the evidence. They've shuttered all kinds of information that usually comes from the Department of Justice. They're either just purging it from the database or they're just not displaying it. But a lot of it is being deleted. It's being erased. You think we'll ever see the Epstein files? We don't need to see them for them to tell us his involvement. You already know his involvement. You were on a plane 7 times with him. So what, y'all went to barbecues? Y'all was playing cornhole? He was recruiting all these young girls from Mar-a-Lago and you knew what he did? What he was doing with them on Pedophile Island? But you just went there to do what? On the 7 different occasions that you were on his private jet. Justice system is ridiculous. And this ain't to turn people against law enforcement or anything. This is about accountability. Because there are far more good officers than bad, but you ain't doing enough to deter bad behavior by these horrible ones based on the actions and penalties that they have after they behave this way.